So hi all, welcome to this video lecture. In this video lecture we are going to discuss about the error handling techniques in Python. So error handling techniques in Python is generally done using exceptions, and exceptions are events that occurs when something goes wrong during program execution. If they are not handled, then they cause the program to stop. So Python provides the try except blocks to handle errors. Okay, and we are going to go ahead and handle different types of errors which we will see over here, right? So let us say, for example, now we if there is a particular chunk of code which we want to execute, right, that can potentially give us an error message. So we generally want to go ahead and provide we want to provide these error message in such a way that it is user friendly. Now for example, if I say let us say, for example, I will create a class and I will provide this class name as, let's say, animals, and I will say def, I will create an init function and I will say self comma name. I am creating this name attribute over here and I will say self dot name is equals to name. Okay, and let me create an object over here, object of animals, and I will pass in a name, let us say zebra. Okay, now over here if I go ahead and if I say print obj dot species, right, now definitely this will go ahead and this will give me an error because there is no attribute named species over here, right? So this will go ahead and give me an attribute error. If I go ahead and if I run this, you will see that this has given me this error, attribute error, right? Animals object has no attribute, that is species, and it has also given me this file name and print object species as my answer, right? But I don't want to go ahead and provide this particular error message to our end users, because end users, they are not actually interested in whether in which line of code what has failed, right? This is specifically, these are helpful for developers, not for the end users. But whenever we are doing some kind of error handling, right, we want customized error messages that are user friendly, right? So in those cases, how we are going to go ahead and handle these kind of errors, right? So for them we have something which we call as the try and except blocks, right? So try, we write it as try keyword, we give over here, and then we will say except over here. Okay, now within this try and except, right, we have to go ahead and provide the code. So within the try block we will have that particular code which can give us the error, right? So these are the chunk of code which we anyways have to go ahead and execute, right? So upon their execution, if it is successful, then definitely it will not go through the except block, but if it gives an error, then it has to go to this except block and it has to run that particular code, right? So for generic error messages, right, for all the for general error messages, like if any kind of error happens, it doesn't matter whether it's an attribute error or an indent error or what kind of error, right? For all the error messages, we have something which we which we call as a generic error message, right? So for that, in order for us to customize that, we will say except exception. Okay, and within this chunk of within this block, right, we will say print, let us say, I will say error has occurred. Correct, I will say error has occurred, or rather I will say let us, for this particular case, I will say attribute error has occurred. Correct. Now instead of giving this error, right, if I go ahead and if I again run this, it is saying, sorry, over here I have to remove this. Okay, now if I go ahead and if I run this, you see it will go ahead and it will give me attribute error has occurred, right? So it has failed in this particular step. Since it has failed, and since because it is in within the try block, it has gone to this except exception and it has executed this. Correct. So this looks fine, right? But what if, but in this particular case it is an attribute error, right? What if there is a different kind of error? Let us say I will say y equals z. There is a variable y I have created, and I am placing this particular variable z within this variable y. I am assigning the value of variable z inside variable y. But if you can just see, z is not defined anywhere, right? So definitely this is a kind of an error, right? This is what we call as a name error. If I go ahead and if I run this, right, then what will happen? See, it has given with this error message, attribute error has occurred. But in reality, this is not an attribute error, right? This is a name error, correct? So what to do in this case? So Python provides us that for specific for specific type of error, we can go ahead and we can handle those exceptions in a customized manner, right? So except exception is a general exception, right? If I want to go ahead and if I want to specifically, I want to say that for all the attribute error, I want to go ahead and print this attribute error has occurred. Okay, now if I go ahead and if I run this one, right, it is now, since it's not an attribute error, so it will not execute this except attribute error. Instead it will give me a system defined error, just like the previous case. You see, it is saying file this line 7 code y equals to z, name error, name z is not defined, which is perfectly fine, right? Now if I want to go ahead and if I want to handle this error also, so underneath this I will again go ahead and I will again type except name error, I will specify, and here I will say print, and within this I will say name not defined, right? Now if I go ahead and if I run this, so it is going to go ahead and it will give me this particular error message that name is not defined, right, for this error. So for different types of error, right, you can go ahead, you can pass this keyword over here and you can definitely handle those customized error messages, right? And after these two error message, now if I want that, if it is not attribute error or name error, if it is any other error apart from this, I want to go ahead and I want to print a general error message. So I will say exception and I will simply go ahead and say print, and I will here pass over here as error, correct? If I go ahead and if I now run this, you see it is still giving me name not defined, but let us say I will say 10 by 0, right? Now this is obviously a division by 0 error, right? This is also a different kind of an error, but this is neither attribute error neither this is a name error, right? So it will go ahead and it will give me this print error message, right? If I go ahead and run this, it will say error. But this is, but a point to note over here is that this except exception, which is a generic error, right, this should obviously be lower than the specific error messages. Okay, now why I'm saying this, because this Python executes line by line, right? If I place this at the top of this particular except block, right, over here, now over here it will definitely go ahead and work, right, because this is neither attribute error or name error. But let us say that I am going to go ahead and I will say let us say print obj, right, obj dot species. Let us say in this particular case it is supposed to give me an attribute error, right, but it will give me an error message over here, only this. So it has executed this except exception, because this is a generic error message. It will run for all kinds of error, and because Python has encountered this first line of code, that's why it has executed this, and that's why it did not go to the attribute error. That is the reason why whenever we are coding, we want to make sure that the generic error messages, right, it is placed at the bottom of the except block, correct? It should not be at the top, it should be at the bottom. Now if I go ahead and if I run this, now it will go ahead and it will give me this answer that attribute error has occurred. Okay, now let us say that this code has successfully executed, right? And after this code, right, after this code has successfully executed, I want to run a section of code only when this chunk of code has successfully executed. That means if my object has been correct, if this code that is present within the try block, if this code has been successfully executed, then only I want the another chunk of code to execute. If this code will give me an error, I don't want that chunk to execute. I don't want that particular code chunk to be executed. In those particular cases, I will simply go ahead and I will provide else statement over here, and here let us say I will say print successful. Okay, so now what this will do, now because this is now going to run successfully, it will go ahead and it will execute and it will print the successful statement, right? If I run this, see, it has printed the successful. Why? Because this has not given me any error. But let us say if I go ahead and if I say y equals to z, right, this will definitely give me an error, a name error in this case. So it will not go ahead and print the successful code, right? See, it is saying name not defined, but this particular statement has not been executed, right? If I do not provide this else statement over here, if I go ahead and if I print it like this outside the try and except block, just like this, so in this particular case what will happen, even if there is some error or even if there is no error, it will go ahead and print the successful statement, right? If I go ahead and run this, it will just go ahead and say name not defined successful, right? Now you can do it either like this, or you can go ahead and you can also say finally, and within the finally block you can go ahead and you can pass this. So what finally will do, finally will go ahead and print this particular statement, even if it doesn't matter whether the try block has successfully executed or whether it has given an error. It will anyways, it will go ahead and it will print this statement. So right now it will give an error, still it will go ahead and print this name not defined and successful. And if I go ahead and if I remove this particular code from here, y equals to z, now this will run successfully, and still it will go ahead and it will give this successful message over here, right? So this is for the finally block, right? It will go ahead and execute it irrespective of whether this try block is giving me an error or it is not giving me error, right? Okay, now for example, if I want, now this is for, now this error message that I have given, right, these are customized error messages, but the error message that is coming from this particular try block, right, it's automatic, right? I'm not invoking, or I'm not giving the command to this try block that go ahead and raise an error if this particular value comes, right? So in those particular cases, if I want to go ahead and if I want to manually invoke an error, right, then what I can definitely go ahead and do, I will just say, let us say for example here I will say name, okay, name equals to, I will say zebra, right? And here I am going to go ahead and here I am going to pass in the name, correct? Now if I say if name is equals to tiger, right, then I will say raise exception, right? Now, and obviously when I say raise exception, right, this raise and then this particular word should match with whatever exception value you are specifying. So raise exception is for generic exception. So if for example, if I want to go ahead and if I want to print the error message that is present within the name error, then instead of raise exception I will say raise name error. Similarly, you can go ahead and you can raise it for attribute error as well. So if I go ahead and if I do this, right now name is zebra, correct? So this will not execute, right? This invoking of this particular error in manual way, this will not execute because the name is not tiger. If I go ahead and if I run this one, okay, this has not given me any error, correct? But if I, let's say if I go ahead and if I say tiger, right, if I pass tiger over here like this, you will see that this will give me a name error, name not defined. See that name not defined is given because this has manually, it has entered this particular code and it has raised this name error, name not defined, right? Even though this code runs perfectly fine, or if I go ahead and if I remove this this particular chunk, right, it will definitely go ahead and it will successfully give me this code, right? So automatically this is not giving me any kind of error. But if you want to go ahead and raise some kind of error manually, right, then you can go ahead and you can do it like this. You can use the raise keyword, and after that you can provide this particular variable name over here, right, this particular attribute, this particular error type over here, whether it's a name error or an attribute error. Okay, so regarding exception handling, this was it. Okay, this is everything that you need to know regarding exception handling, right? And obviously you can also nest try and except block. That means in finally also after this you can also place one more try block over here, okay, and you can place one more except block inside of this as well. So you can do nesting within this try and except block as well. This concept is absolutely fine. Okay, you can do nesting of these exception handling modules, right? So I hope I have been able to give you some clarity on this. I hope I have been able to give you a brief overview on this particular error handling. If you really like this video, then please don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel, and please don't forget to press the bell icon for notification. Thank you.